You're nothing. 2 words. That's all it took to shatter 22 years of hoping someone might eventually see me. My fated mate, the future alpha of Silver Crest, rejected me in front of 300 wolves. Then he turned around and marked my sister instead. But here's the part nobody expected. Not me, not the pack laughing at my humiliation, not even the ancient Lycan Emperor who'd been watching from the shadows. Because the moment Dante's rejection left his lips, a voice cut through the hall like a blade forged in hellfire. 1 word. Absolute. Irreversible. Mine. Hey, gorgeous souls. Welcome back to Eliana's Romance Library. Before we dive into today's story, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment. Where in the world are you listening from? Wherever you are, I see you. And this global community is everything. All right, enough from me. Let's get into this story. And trust me, this one, it's going to wreck you in the best way. Let's go. Chapter 1. The Invisible Daughter. The morning of the mating moon ceremony, I woke to the sound of my mother fussing over fabric swatches in the hallway. Not for me, obviously. For Seraphina, the golden daughter. The one whose wolf emerged right on schedule at 16, powerful and beautiful, while mine decided to show up 3 years late like a drunk uncle at a wedding. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to my family orbit around my sister like she was the sun and they were all desperately trying not to freeze. The silver or the gold, darling? Gold brings out her eyes, don't you think? Dante won't be able to look away. Dante, future alpha of Silver Crest. Every unmated female in the pack had been circling him for years. Seraphina had already claimed him in her mind, probably had their pups named and their anniversary vacations planned. I rolled out of bed and caught my reflection in the small cracked mirror on my wall. Same brown hair, same sharp features everyone said were interesting, instead of pretty. Same invisible girl who'd learned to move through this house like a ghost. My wolf stirred, restless, anxious. She'd been doing that all week, pacing inside me like she knew something I didn't. Settle down, I muttered. We both know tonight means nothing for us. She didn't listen. Wolves rarely do. I slipped out the back door before anyone could assign me errands, heading for my secret place in the eastern forest. A clearing where I'd taught myself to fight when no one was watching, where I'd stolen books from the pack library and memorized battle strategies by moonlight. My pack thought I was weak because my wolf came late. They thought defective meant useless. They were wrong. I moved through training forms until my muscles burned, each strike sharper than the last. I wasn't preparing for a mate. I was preparing for the day I could finally leave this place behind and never look back. By evening, the great hall blazed with torchlight and anticipation. Wolves from every corner of Silver Crest territory had gathered for the ceremony, the sacred night when fated bonds revealed themselves under the mating moon's peak. I positioned myself near the back, comfortable in the shadows. Seraphina stood near the front, radiant in her gold gown, accepting compliments like they were her birthright. Our parents flanked her, proud, attentive, like their second daughter didn't exist. The moon rose higher, and then something happened that I'd stopped believing was possible. A pull, sharp and sudden, like a hook behind my ribs. My wolf surged forward, suddenly awake in a way she'd never been before. "Mate," she breathed. "Mate, mate, mate." My eyes scanned the crowd, following the invisible thread, and landed on Dante. He stood across the hall, tall and golden and everything an alpha should be, and he was looking directly at me. For one single terrifying heartbeat, I let myself hope. His expression flickered, recognition, then something else, something cold. He turned away from me and walked toward Seraphina, and my world began to crumble. Chapter 2. You're nothing. The bond screamed inside me as Dante walked away. Every step he took toward Seraphina felt like a knife twisting deeper. My wolf howled, confused and desperate, clawing at my insides like she could physically drag him back. "He feels it," she insisted. "He has to feel it." He did. I saw it in the brief flicker of his eyes when our gazes met. He knew exactly what I was to him. He just didn't care. The crowd parted for him like water, everyone sensing the significance of the moment. Dante, future alpha of Silver Crest, approaching his chosen mate. This was the stuff of pack legends, romantic stories they'd tell for generations. Except I was supposed to be in that story. And instead, I was watching it happen to someone else. Dante reached Serafina and took her hand. She smiled up at him, radiant and unsurprised, like she'd known all along this moment would come. Maybe she had. I, Dante of Silver Crest. His voice rang through the hall, ceremonial and absolute. Claim my chosen mate. Chosen, not fated. The distinction rippled through the crowd. Confused murmurs, exchanged glances. Wolves didn't choose mates. The bond chose for them, unless they rejected it. Dante turned to face me across the hall. 300 wolves followed his gaze, finally noticing the invisible girl in the shadows. I reject you, Kira Vance, as my fated mate. The words landed like physical blows. The bond inside me shuddered, cracking down the middle, but he wasn't finished. You are nothing. His voice carried clearly, ensuring everyone heard. You have always been nothing. I choose strength. He gestured to Serafina, who had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable. Slightly. I choose her. Laughter scattered through the crowd. Not everyone, but enough. Enough to let me know exactly what they thought of the beta's defective daughter being rejected in front of the entire pack. My mother's face was carefully blank. My father studied his shoes. They weren't going to defend me. They never had. Dante turned back to Serafina, tilting her head to expose her neck. His canines extended, long, sharp, ready to mark her as his forever. I should have looked away. I couldn't. His teeth sank into her throat. The crowd erupted in cheers. My sister was now the future Luna of Silver Crest, mated to the wolf who was supposed to be mine. Something cracked inside me. Not my heart. I'd armored that years ago. Something deeper. The last fragile thread of hope I hadn't even known I was still holding. It snapped clean. My wolf went quiet. Not defeated. Just finished. We don't need them, she whispered. We never did. She was right. I turned my back on the celebration and walked toward the exit. Spine straight, chin lifted. I would not run. I would not cry. I would not give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. Each step felt like walking through water. The bond, or what was left of it, screamed at me to turn back, to fight, to beg. I kept walking. The doors were 20 feet away, then 10, then 5. And that's when I felt it. A presence, ancient, immense, watching from the shadows near the doorway. My wolf lifted her head, suddenly alert, not afraid. Something else. Something I couldn't name. I was 3 steps from freedom when a voice cut through the celebration behind me. Deep, resonant, absolute. One word that stopped every wolf in the hall dead. Mine. Chapter 3. The Emperor's Claim. I froze. Behind me, I heard bodies hitting the floor, not falling, dropping. Every wolf in the Great Hall crashed to their knees like puppets with cut strings, including Dante, including my parents, including Serafina still bleeding from her fresh mating mark, and Alpha Command, but not like any I'd ever felt. This was older, deeper, the kind of power that didn't ask for submission. It simply took it. I was still standing. My legs hadn't buckled. My knees hadn't bent. Whatever force had flattened 300 wolves had passed over me like I wasn't even there, or like I wasn't meant to kneel. I turned slowly, heart pounding, and saw him. He stepped from the shadows near the doorway, and suddenly the hall felt smaller, like his presence alone took up more space than the walls could contain. Tall, broad, built like war made flesh. His face was carved and cold, sharp cheekbones, a jaw that could cut glass, eyes the color of molten gold. He looked like he'd been sculpted by someone who wanted to create the most dangerous, beautiful thing imaginable. And he was looking at me like I was the only person in the room. "Lycan Emperor," someone whispered from the floor. "That's the Lycan Emperor." My brain stuttered. Caelan Voss, ruler of the 12 kingdoms, the wolf who'd lived for 900 years without ever taking a mate. He was supposed to be a myth, a distant power no one in Silvercrest ever expected to see. And he was walking toward me. The crowd stayed frozen on their knees. No one dared move. No one dared breathe. He stopped in front of me, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. Close enough that his scent hit me, pine and smoke and something wilder underneath. My wolf stirred, not with fear, with recognition. "You are mine," he said. Not a question, not a request. I should have been terrified. I should have dropped to my knees like everyone else and begged for mercy. Instead, I heard myself say, "I'm not anyone's, not anymore." A ripple of shock ran through the kneeling crowd. Someone gasped. Someone whispered that I'd just signed my death warrant. The Emperor's expression didn't change, but something flickered in those golden eyes, something that looked almost like delight. "You have fire," he said. "Good. You'll need it." He extended his hand, not grabbing, not demanding, offering. "Come with me. Leave this place that couldn't see your worth." I glanced back at the hall, at the pack that had ignored me for 22 years, at the parents who'd never defended me, at the sister who'd taken everything without a second thought, at Dante still on his knees, unable to meet my eyes. I owed this place nothing. It had given me nothing. I turned back to the Emperor, to this ancient, impossible wolf who'd just claimed me in front of everyone who'd ever called me worthless. His hand was still extended, patient, waiting. I took it. Not surrender. Strategy. This was the only door standing open, and I'd be damned if I didn't walk through it. His fingers closed around mine, warm, steady, almost reverent. He led me toward the exit without another word. Behind us, I heard Seraphina's voice, shrill and disbelieving. "She can't. That's not—" The Emperor paused just long enough to glance back. "Your pack rejected an Empress," he said, cold and final. "Remember that." The doors closed behind us. I didn't look back. Chapter 4. The Imperial Court. The Emperor's carriage was nothing like the wooden carts I'd grown up with. Black lacquered walls, velvet seats soft enough to sink into, windows of crystal-clear glass that showed the landscape blurring past at impossible speed. I sat on one side. He sat on the other, watching me. Miles of silence stretched between us as Silvercrest territory fell away behind us. My wolf should have been panicking. We were leaving everything we'd ever known with a stranger who could kill us with a thought. Instead, she was calm, calmer than she'd been in years. "He won't hurt us," she said. "You don't know that." "I know. Infuriating creature." "You're not afraid of me." Caelan's voice broke the silence. I met his gaze. "I've spent my life being afraid of people with less power than you. I'm tired." Something shifted in his expression, not quite a smile, but close. "Where are you taking me?" I asked. "The Imperial capital. You'll have your own quarters, your own staff, space to breathe. And what do you expect in return?" There it was, the question I'd been dreading. Every gift came with strings, every kindness had a price. I'd learned that lesson young. Caelan leaned forward slightly, golden eyes intense. "Nothing you don't choose to give." I searched his face for the lie, the catch, the trap waiting to snap shut. I found nothing but sincerity. That scared me more than cruelty would have. "The bond," I said, changing tactics. "You feel it?" His jaw tightened. "It's overwhelming. Your scent fills every corner of my mind. I haven't been able to think clearly since you walked past me." Honest. Brutally honest. Then why aren't you claiming me by force? Emperors take what they want. The words came out sharper than I intended, testing him, pushing. His response was quiet, controlled. I have taken many things in 900 years. I will not take you. That's not the maid I want to be. I didn't know what to do with that. I'd been prepared for violence, for demands, for the kind of possessive cruelty I'd watched other wolves inflict on their mates. I wasn't prepared for restraint. The carriage crested a hill, and the imperial capital spread before us. My breath caught. A city of white stone and silver spires sprawling across a valley like something from a dream. At its heart, a palace that touched the clouds. Massive, ancient, beautiful. Silver Crest was a village. This was an empire. "Welcome home," Caelan said. The words sent a strange shiver down my spine. We arrived at the palace as the sun set. Servants bowed, guards saluted. Everyone moved with the quiet efficiency of wolves who knew exactly how powerful their emperor was. And they were all looking at me. Caelan led me personally through marble corridors, past tapestries older than my entire bloodline, until we reached a wing of the palace that gleamed with fresh flowers and warm light. "These are your chambers," he said. "The staff answers to you. The guards protect you. No one enters without your permission." I stepped inside. The rooms were larger than my family's entire house. A bedroom with a canopy bed, a private library, a bathing chamber with a pool, gardens visible through floor-to-ceiling windows. "This is mine?" I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. "Unconditionally." He stayed at the threshold, not entering. "I will not cross this door unless you invite me." I turned to face him. "Why? Why any of this?" His answer was simple, devastating. "Because I have waited 900 years to find you. I will spend the rest of eternity proving I was worth the wait." He left before I could respond. I stood alone in my new chambers, surrounded by luxury I'd never imagined, trying to process the impossible turn my life had taken. A knock at the door. A handmaiden entered with a wooden box bearing the imperial seal. Inside, training leathers, perfectly sized, and a note in elegant handwriting. "The sparring grounds open at dawn. Join me, if you wish." He wasn't trying to dress me up like a doll. He was trying to set me loose. My wolf stirred with something that felt dangerously like hope. Chapter 5. Earning Respect. Dawn found me at the imperial sparring grounds. I'd barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Dante's face as he rejected me. Heard the laughter of wolves who thought I was worthless. So I got up, got dressed, and went to the one place where I could silence the noise in my head. The grounds were massive. Stone arenas, weapon racks taller than me, wolves already training in the gray morning light. They moved with a precision that made Silver Crest's warriors look like stumbling pups. Every single one of them stopped to stare when I walked in. Whispers started immediately. "That's her, the Emperor's unclaimed mate. She's tiny." I ignored them and approached the wolf who looked like she was in charge, a scarred female with shoulders like a battering ram and eyes that had clearly seen centuries of combat. "General Sarah?" I asked. She looked me up and down with the enthusiasm of someone inspecting a particularly disappointing vegetable. "The Emperor's pet wants to play soldier?" My wolf bristled. I kept my voice level. "I want to spar. If I lose, you can call it playing." A flicker of something, surprise maybe, crossed her face. "Fine, Marcus." A mid-rank warrior stepped forward, taller than me, heavier, confident in the easy way of someone who'd never been beaten by a woman half his size. Perfect. We squared off in one of the smaller rings. A crowd gathered. They expected entertainment, watching the Emperor's new toy get knocked around. Marcus attacked first, fast, strong, assuming he could overwhelm me with brute force. I'd been fighting stronger opponents my whole life. I ducked his first strike, deflected his second, and let his momentum carry him past me. He stumbled, recovered. came at me again with more caution. Good. Cautious opponents made more predictable mistakes. We traded blows. He landed a few. I wasn't invincible, but I was faster than he expected. Trickier. My self-taught style didn't follow any patterns he recognized. The fight stretched on. His breathing grew heavy. Mine stayed controlled. I'd learned endurance in those secret training sessions. Learned to keep fighting long after my body screamed to stop. Marcus swung wide. I saw the opening. I moved inside his guard, hooked his leg, and dropped him. Before he could recover, I had my arm locked around his throat. He tapped out. The grounds went silent. General Sarah approached, looking at me like she was reassessing everything she'd assumed. "Where did you train?" "Alone," I said, releasing Marcus and standing. In secret, my pack didn't think I was worth teaching. Something shifted in her expression. Not warmth, recognition. The understanding of one fighter acknowledging another. "Same time tomorrow," she said. "Don't be late." The whispers changed after that. Not mockery anymore, curiosity. I was walking back toward the palace when I felt him. Caelan fell into step beside me, appearing from nowhere like a particularly elegant ghost. "You were watching," I said. Not a question. I was. No denial, no apology. "You fight like you have nothing to lose." "I don't." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "Your pack taught you nothing?" "My pack thought I was defective, so I taught myself." I glanced at him. In shadows, where no one could see me fail. His jaw tightened. A muscle ticked in his cheek. "A pack that wastes strength like yours deserves to lose it." We walked in silence until we reached the palace entrance. Then he stopped. "The War Council meets tomorrow," he said. "I want you there." I blinked. "I know nothing about running an empire." "You know how to see what others miss. That's rarer than you think." He left the invitation hanging and walked away. I watched him go, something warm and terrifying unfurling in my chest. First the training leathers, now the council. He wasn't trying to own me. He was trying to make me powerful. Chapter 6. The Council. The War Council chamber smelled like old paper and barely concealed ego. I'd dressed carefully, not in gowns, but in the formal attire that had appeared in my chambers overnight. Sleek. Dark. The kind of clothes that said I belong here even when everyone else's eyes said otherwise. The chamber itself was ancient. Vaulted stone ceilings. A massive table covered in maps. Wolves who looked like they'd been making important decisions since before my grandmother was born. All male. All staring at me like I'd wandered in by accident. Caelan sat at the head of the table. He nodded toward the empty chair at his right, the position of near equal. I walked to it without hesitation. I'd spent too many years skulking in corners. Those days were over. "Gentlemen," Caelan said, "you know why we're here. The border dispute between the Thornwood and Ashfall packs requires resolution." The debate began immediately. Tradition versus precedent. Political favor versus long-term stability. A dozen old wolves talking in circles while the actual problem sat unsolved in the center of the table. I listened, absorbed, mapped the dynamics. Who deferred to whom, who had grudges, who actually cared about the outcome versus who just wanted to hear themselves speak. Then I spotted it. A flaw in the proposed treaty, buried in the grain redistribution clause. The math didn't work. I ran the numbers twice in my head to make sure. If they signed this treaty as written, 3 border villages would starve within 2 winters. The clause is wrong. My voice cut through the debate. Immediate silence. An advisor with a gray beard and condescending eyes turned to me. "I beg your pardon?" "The grain redistribution clause. Whoever wrote it can't do basic arithmetic." I leaned forward. "The allocation assumes a harvest yield that's 15% higher than the region's 10-year average. Sign this, and you're sentencing 3 villages to famine." Shocked silence. Then the bearded advisor recovered. "The Emperor's bedmate presumes to correct us?" My wolf snarled. I kept my voice calm. "I presume nothing. I did the math. Would you like to check it?" His face reddened. Other advisors shifted uncomfortably. Caelan's voice cut through the tension. "Check it." An aide scrambled for parchment and quill. Numbers were reviewed, calculations verified. I was right. Caelan addressed the room without a hint of surprise. "The correction stands. Revise the treaty." The council moved on, but something had shifted. The advisors who'd dismissed me were watching now, calculating. I wasn't decoration. I was a factor. After the session, Caelan walked with me through the corridors. The silence between us was different now, charged with something I couldn't name. "You just saved 3 villages," he said finally. "They'll never know your name." "Good." I shrugged. I didn't do it for recognition. He stopped, turned to face me fully. "Why did you do it?" I met his gaze. "Because I could. Because no one else saw it. Because that's who I want to be." He stared at me for a long moment. Something raw flickered in those ancient golden eyes. "You continue to exceed every expectation I form." The words hit harder than they should have. I wanted to deflect, to brush it off with sarcasm. Instead, I felt the bond pulse between us, warm, insistent, patient. "I should go," I said quickly. "Training tomorrow." I retreated to my chambers before I could do something stupid, like admit that his praise made me feel seen in a way I'd never experienced. That night, I dreamed of him, his hands, his voice, the weight of his body close to mine. I woke flushed and aching, my wolf pacing with need. The walls I'd built were cracking. I wasn't sure I wanted to repair them. Chapter 7. A Wound and a Touch. A week into my new life, I finally understood something about the Lycan Emperor. He was absolutely certifiably insane. I reached this conclusion while watching him spar with his elite guard, a training session I'd started attending because the skill level was extraordinary and definitely not because I enjoyed watching him move. Caelan fought like violence was a language he'd been speaking for centuries. Every strike precise, every dodge effortless. 900 years of combat experience flowing through him like water. He was untouchable, which is why I noticed immediately when he wasn't. One of the guards lunged, a strike Caelan had dodged 100 times before. This time, he didn't move fast enough. The blade caught his ribs. Blood bloomed through his training shirt. The entire yard froze. No one injured the Emperor. No one even came close. Caelan waved off the horrified guard. "Minor wound. Continue." But I'd been watching him for a week. I'd seen him dodge faster strikes from worse angles. He'd let it happen. The realization hit me like cold water. A guard approached me minutes later. "The Emperor requests your presence in his private chambers." My heart did something complicated. "For what purpose?" The guard's expression was carefully neutral. He mentioned needing assistance with his injury. Insane. Completely insane. I followed the guard through corridors I hadn't seen before, deeper into the palace, closer to him. I found Caelan in his chambers, a warrior's space, sparse and functional despite its size. Maps on the walls, weapons mounted in careful displays, a fireplace crackling low, and Caelan himself, shirtless, blood still seeping from the gash across his ribs. Palace healers hovered nearby. He dismissed them the moment I entered. "I was hoping you might..." He gestured toward the medical supplies laid out on a table. Then he stopped, looking almost uncertain. 900 years old, and he was nervous. "You let him hit you," I said flatly. He didn't deny it. I crossed the room, curiosity overriding caution. Up close, the wound was shallow but bloody. It would heal within hours with his abilities. He didn't need my help. He wanted it. I picked up a clean cloth and began wiping away the blood. His skin was warm beneath my fingers, warmer than I expected. He went completely still. I could feel his pulse racing under my hands. "Why?" I asked quietly. "Why do this?" His answer came rough and honest. "I have waited 900 years to feel someone's hands and want them there. I am not proud of it, but I am not sorry." My hands paused on his bandage. I should have been angry. He'd manipulated the situation, created a reason for me to touch him. Instead, something cracked in my chest. This ancient, powerful being, this wolf who could have anyone and anything, was so desperate for my touch that he'd bleed for it. I finished wrapping the bandage. My hands lingered on his ribs. "You're insane," I whispered. "Probably." His hand came up slowly, giving me time to pull away. I didn't. His fingers brushed my jaw, tilted my face up. Golden eyes met mine. The bond roared between us. He leaned closer. I felt his breath on my lips. A knock shattered the moment. "Your Majesty, urgent message from the northern border." Caelan's eyes closed. A muscle ticked in his jaw. "Later," he growled. The messenger retreated, but the moment was broken. I stepped back, pulse racing. "I should go." "You could stay." "I could." I moved toward the door. "But you're going to have to work harder than a self-inflicted stab wound." His surprised laugh followed me into the corridor. At the door, I paused, looked back. "Next time you want me to touch you, just ask. No bleeding required." I left him staring after me. My hands were still tingling where they'd touched his skin. Chapter 8. Moonlit Confessions. I couldn't sleep. The palace was quiet, the moon bright through my windows, and every time I closed my eyes, I felt the ghost of his skin under my fingers. My wolf paced restlessly. "Go to him," she demanded. "Absolutely not. Coward. Survival instinct. There's a difference." I gave up on rest and wandered the palace corridors. Late enough that the halls were empty. Late enough that I could pretend I wasn't looking for him. I found a balcony I hadn't seen before. Secluded, overlooking the mountains. The kind of place someone would go when they wanted to be alone with their thoughts. I wasn't surprised when I felt him behind me. "Great minds think alike," Caelan said, stepping onto the balcony. "Or restless ones." He joined me at the railing, keeping respectful distance. Always giving me space. Always letting me choose. "Can't sleep?" I asked. "Haven't slept well in centuries." He stared out at the mountains. Too quiet. Too empty. Something in his voice made me turn. "What does it feel like, living that long?" He was silent for a moment. Then, "Most of it blurs. Faces fade. Battles blend together. Only the losses stay sharp." "The losses?" "Everyone I've ever cared about is dead." His voice was matter-of-fact. Not self-pitying, just honest. "After a while, you stop making attachments. The grief becomes too expensive." I leaned against the railing, processing. "That sounds lonely." "It is." He glanced at me. "And then you walked past me and suddenly centuries felt too short." The words hung in the air between us. "Your turn," he said quietly. "Fair trade. What keeps you awake?" I hadn't intended to share, but something about the moonlight and the late hour loosened my tongue. "I grew up invisible," I said. "Not abused, just unseen. My parents looked through me like I was glass. My sister took everything without asking because no one ever stopped her." "And Dante?" "Dante was just the final confirmation." I shrugged. I already knew I was nothing to them. He just said it out loud. Caelan's hands tightened on the railing. "You were never nothing." "I know that now." I looked at him. "I think I always knew. I just couldn't prove it to anyone who mattered." "I matter." The words came fierce and immediate. "And I see you." My chest tightened. We stood in silence, something shifting between us. The tension from before was still there, but softer now, warmer. "Tell me something no one knows about you," I said impulsively. He considered. "I hate formal dinners. The small talk makes me want to tear my own ears off." I laughed, a real laugh, surprised out of me. "The Lycan Emperor hates small talk?" "Despise it. How is the weather in your territory? How fare your crops?" "I've had the same conversations for 900 years. He shook his head. "I'd rather fight a war than attend another banquet." "So why do you?" "Because it's expected. Because peace requires performance." He looked at me. "But with you, I don't perform. I just talk." My heart did something dangerous. He reached over, his hand covering mine on the railing. Not gripping, just resting there, an offering. I didn't pull away. "Stay," he said softly. "Not in my bed, just here, talking." "You're asking?" "I will always ask." I stayed. We talked until dawn, sharing darkness and laughter in equal measure. When the sky lightened, he walked me back to my chambers and kissed my knuckles at the door. "Thank you," he said, "for staying." I closed the door behind me, leaned against it, and whispered to myself, "I'm in so much trouble." Chapter 9. The Court Watches. The palace had eyes everywhere. I'd been aware of the whispers since my arrival, but they grew louder as the days passed. The Emperor was different, they said. Softer, distracted, seen smiling at odd moments, and always, always near me. We walked together through the gardens, trained together in the private yards, sat together in council meetings where his hand occasionally found my knee under the table. The court noticed everything. Noble wolves began circling me like sharks scenting blood. A countess with cold eyes approached me at breakfast, honeyed words dripping with false friendship. "My dear Empress-to-be, you simply must tell me how you've captured his attention." I smiled blandly. Stunning personality, devastating wit, complete indifference to his title. She blinked, uncertain if I was joking. I wasn't. More approaches followed. Advisors seeking favor, generals testing my knowledge, nobles hoping to manipulate the emperor's new interest. I handled each the same way, direct, unimpressed, faintly amused. I'd survived 22 years of being invisible. A few ambitious courtiers weren't going to break me. Caelan watched from the edges, never interfering. "You don't need rescuing," he observed one afternoon. I never did. I glanced at him. "Does that bother you?" "The opposite." His eyes held something fierce. "I don't want a mate I have to protect from everything. I want a partner who can stand beside me." My wolf preened. I told her to stop. 3 weeks after my arrival, Caelan announced a formal dinner, the first since I'd come to the capital. The significance wasn't lost on the court. I was being presented. My handmaidens dressed me in a gown of deep blue, elegant but sharp. I looked like a weapon wrapped in silk. I entered the dining hall alone. 300 wolves turned to watch. Caelan met me at the door, offering his arm. "You look like you're about to conquer something." "The evening is young." He smiled, that rare, genuine smile that transformed his entire face. He led me to the head table and seated me at his right, the position of near equal. Conversation flowed around us, politics, trade, the tedious small talk he claimed to despise. But beneath the table, his hand found my knee. Not demanding, questioning. "Is this okay?" I let his hand stay. The meal dragged on, course after course. My skin hummed with awareness every time his fingers shifted. Finally, mercifully, the dinner ended. Caelan walked me through the corridors, the crowd falling away until we were alone. We reached a shadowed alcove, private and quiet. He guided me against the wall, gentle but purposeful. Our foreheads touched, both of us breathing hard. "Tell me to stop," he whispered. I pulled him closer instead. Chapter 10. Almost. His lips met mine, and the world caught fire. The kiss was desperate, consuming. Every moment of tension from the past weeks igniting in a single point of contact. Caelan's hands framed my face like I was precious. His body pressed me into the wall like I was necessary. His wolf surged forward. I could feel it through the bond, wild and demanding. Mine answered, howling, aching. I fisted my hands in his shirt and pulled him closer, closer, until there was no space between us at all. His mouth moved against mine, hungry and reverent at once. His canines extended. I felt them graze my lower lip, and heat pooled low in my stomach. The urge to complete the bond crashed through me like a wave. To let him mark me, to mark him back, to end this aching incompleteness once and for all. He felt it too. His hands trembled where they held me. His breathing came ragged against my lips. Then he wrenched himself away. He stepped back, putting distance between us. His chest heaved, his hands shook. Why? The word tore out of me, raw with frustration. Why did you stop? His eyes were molten gold when they met mine. Because when I claim you, it will be because you chose it fully, not because I overwhelmed you in a dark hallway. I stared at him. He was the most powerful wolf alive. He could take whatever he wanted. Emperors had been doing exactly that for millennia, and he was denying himself, for me. You're impossible, I whispered. So I've been told. The restraint in his voice nearly undid me. He wanted me, desperately, obviously, painfully. But he was holding himself back because he refused to take more than I consciously offered. No one had ever given me that kind of choice. I need to go, I said. The words felt like glass in my throat. I know. Neither of us moved. Kira? My name on his lips like a prayer. When you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'll be here. I'm not going anywhere. I retreated to my chambers before I could change my mind. My wolf howled in protest the entire way. Go back. Finish it. He's ours. That's exactly the problem, I told her. He makes me want to stop thinking. I paced my room for hours, arguing with myself. The walls I'd built had protected me. From my family's neglect, from the pack's dismissal, from hoping for things I'd never receive. But Caelan wasn't my family. He wasn't Silver Crest. He was something else entirely. I caught my reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back looked different, softer around the edges, fiercer in the eyes. I'd spent my life being brave about the wrong things. It takes more courage to stay than to run. I made my decision. I left my chambers and walked through the moonlit corridors toward the Imperial wing. Each step felt inevitable. Each breath brought me closer. I found his door. Light flickered from within. He wasn't sleeping either. I knocked. The door opened. Caelan stood there, surprise and hope and fear all warring on his face. I'm done being afraid, I said. Then I walked past him into his chambers. Chapter 11, The Marking, Part 1. The door closed behind me with a soft click. Caelan stayed frozen by the entrance, watching, waiting, giving me control even now. His chambers were warm. Firelight flickered across ancient weapons and older maps. Everything smelled like him, pine and smoke and something wild underneath. I turned to face him. You're sure? His voice was rough, barely controlled. I answered by crossing the distance between us. My hands landed on his chest. His heart pounded beneath my palms, 900 years old, and his pulse raced like a young wolf's first hunt. I slid my hands up. His shoulders, his neck, his jaw. His eyes fluttered closed at my touch. A shudder ran through his entire body. Kira. My name sounded different in his mouth. Holy. Desperate. I've spent my whole life being overlooked, I said quietly. Dismissed. Unmated in every way that mattered. His eyes opened. Golden. Burning. I built walls because I had to, but they became a prison. I met his gaze. I don't want to be empty anymore. And when I'm with you, you feel full, he finished. I know. I feel it too. His hands hovered at my waist, still not touching, still waiting for permission. I've lived 9 centuries, he said, ruled, conquered, outlasted everything. His voice cracked. None of it mattered. It was just waiting. Waiting for what? You. Simple. Absolute. I would rather have 1 lifetime with you than another millennium alone. Something broke open in my chest, not shattering, blooming. I pushed him toward the bed, gently but firmly. He went willingly, sat on the edge, looked up at me with ancient eyes full of impossible hope. I climbed over him, straddled his lap, my hands on his shoulders. I'm going to mark you first, I said. Is that a problem? His breath caught. No one had ever marked a Lycan Emperor. The very idea was unthinkable. Emperors claimed they didn't submit. But Caelan tilted his head back, baring his throat completely. Total vulnerability, total trust. I have been yours since your scent hit me, he said. Make it permanent. I leaned down, pressed my lips to his pulse point first, feeling it hammer against my mouth. He trembled beneath me. 900 years of power, and he was shaking because I was about to claim him. My canines extended. I bit. Chapter 12. The Marking, Part 2. The bond exploded. 9 centuries of emptiness flooded with light and warmth and her. Through the mark, I felt everything Caelan had ever been. The loneliness, the endless years of watching others find mates while he felt nothing, the slow resignation that he would rule forever and die alone. And then, me. Walking past him in a crowded hall, my scent hitting him like a blow. The moment everything changed. I released his throat. My mark glowed briefly against his skin before settling into permanence. My mark. On the Lycan Emperor. He looked at me with something beyond love, beyond desire. Like I'd given him back a piece of himself he'd lost so long ago he'd forgotten what it felt like to be whole. My turn? The words came hoarse. Wrecked. I bared my throat in answer, but he didn't move immediately. His hands came up to cup my face, thumbs stroking my cheekbones, memorizing me. Once I mark you, he said, there's no going back. You'll be bound to me, to this empire, forever. I know. Are you sure? I pulled him down to me. I have never been more sure of anything in my life. He kissed me first, soft, reverent, savoring. Then his mouth moved to my throat. His lips traced my pulse. His breath warmed my skin. His canines extended. He bit. The world dissolved. The bond completed. 2 halves finally whole. Everything I'd been missing, everything I'd been looking for without knowing it crashed into place like coming home. I cried out. Not pain, completion. What followed was everything. Passionate and tender, desperate and patient. He touched me like I was sacred. I met him like an equal. Between moments we talked. He told me about battles he'd fought. I traced his scars and learned their stories. He mapped my freckles and insisted he'd memorize each one. There are 47 on your shoulders alone, he murmured against my skin. You're counting? I'm cataloging. Very different. I laughed, genuine, free. When had I last laughed like that? Had I ever? The night stretched long. Neither of us wanted it to end. Dawn crept through the windows, finding us tangled together, marked, claimed, complete. Caelan pulled me closer, pressing a kiss to my hair. I thought I knew what happiness was. I was wrong. You're very old, I said drowsily. It's okay to be wrong sometimes. His laugh rumbled through his chest and into mine. A knock at the door shattered the peace. Your Majesty. A guard's voice, hesitant. The court has felt the bond complete. They're requesting, Caelan sighed. They're requesting to see their new Empress. My stomach flipped, nerves and excitement tangling together. Ready? He asked. I looked at him, at the mark on his throat, at the matching one I could feel pulsing on mine. Let's not keep them waiting. Chapter 13. The Empire Kneels. I dressed like I was going to war. The gown laid out for me was imperial in every sense, deep crimson, threaded with gold, cut to emphasize rather than soften. I looked like a blade wrapped in silk. Caelan watched me fasten the final clasps, making no effort to hide his staring. "You look like you're about to conquer something," he said. "You said that at the dinner." It's still true, possibly more true. I turned to face him. His mark was visible above his collar, deliberate, I suspected. He wanted the court to see it. "Nervous?" he asked. "Terrified," I admitted. "But I've been terrified before. I walked out of it." His eyes softened. "That you did." We walked through the palace corridors together, side by side, equal. Servants bowed as we passed. Guards saluted. Word had spread. The bond was complete. The Emperor had been marked, and everyone wanted to see the woman who'd done the impossible. The throne room doors loomed ahead. I could hear the crowd inside, hundreds of wolves waiting to judge me. Caelan took my hand, squeezed once. "Whatever happens in there," he said, "you've already won. You marked an emperor. Everything else is decoration." The doors swung open. The throne room was vast, vaulted ceilings, ancient banners, wolves packed into every available space, nobles, generals, advisors, servants. The entire court assembled to witness this moment. Every eye turned to me. I walked down the center aisle with my spine straight and my chin high. I'd spent 22 years being invisible. I wasn't hiding anymore. Caelan walked beside me, not leading, partnering. We reached the dais. 2 thrones sat upon it, matching, equal in size and grandeur. My throne, next to his. Caelan turned to address the crowd. His voice carried through the hall, imperial and absolute. "I present to you Kira Voss, my fated mate, my marked partner, your Empress." A ripple ran through the crowd. Voss, not Vance. I'd taken his name. I'd become part of his legacy. One by one, the wolves in the hall lowered to their knees. Not forced by alpha command, offered freely. General Sarah, from the sparring grounds, knelt with a grim smile. The advisors who'd watched me correct their treaty bowed their heads. Even the nobles who'd tried to manipulate me sank to the floor. I watched an empire acknowledge me, and something shifted in my chest. I'd been told I was nothing. An empire begged to differ. Caelan offered me the floor. He wanted them to hear my voice, not just see my face. I stepped forward. "I did not come here seeking a crown," I said. "I came because there was nothing left for me where I was." The hall was silent, listening. "I will not be a decorative empress. I will attend councils. I will train with your warriors. I will be present in every space that matters." I let my gaze sweep the room. "If you expected someone soft, I apologize for the disappointment." A few nervous laughs, more than a few respectful nods. "If you expected someone fierce, good, let's get to work." The court rose. Murmurs of approval spread like ripples. Caelan's hand found my lower back. Supportive, proud. A messenger approached, looking nervous. "Your Majesties." He held out a sealed letter. This arrived from Silver Crest, my former pack. Caelan took the letter, read it, handed it to me. "They've heard the news," he said. "They want an audience." I stared at the Silver Crest seal, at the crest of the pack that had thrown me away. "Then let them come." Chapter 14. The Return. They arrived 3 days later. I watched from a palace window as the Silver Crest delegation approached, small, provincial, nervous in the way of people who'd suddenly realized they'd made a catastrophic mistake. My mother, my father, Serafina, Dante. All of them coming to grovel at the feet of the woman they'd discarded. Caelan appeared beside me. "You don't have to see them." I know. I watched my family climb the palace steps. I want to. Not for them. For me. I needed to face what I'd come from, to prove to myself how far I'd traveled. The throne room reception was formal, full court present, every noble and advisor watching to see how their new empress would handle her past. I sat beside Caelan on my matching throne. I would not stand to greet them. The delegation entered. My parents looked older than I remembered. Smaller, somehow, like the palace had shrunk them. Serafina walked behind them, beautiful and uncertain in a way I'd never seen before. The mark on her throat, Dante's mark, seemed faded somehow, diminished. Dante himself couldn't meet my eyes. My father spoke first. Flowery words, empty praise, a careful rewriting of history that conveniently forgot 22 years of neglect. I listened without expression. "We always knew you were destined for greatness," my mother added, tears glistening. The lie was so blatant I almost laughed. "Did you?" I kept my voice calm. "I must have missed that between being ignored and being forgotten," she faltered. The court murmured. Dante stepped forward. "Kira, Your Majesty, might I speak privately?" "No." I didn't soften the word. "Anything you wish to say can be said here." He swallowed, forced into public accounting. "I made a mistake," he said. "The bond was real. I should have... You rejected me because you thought I was worthless." I cut him off. "You were wrong. That's not my problem to solve." He flinched like I'd struck him. Serafina tried next. Tears, trembling voice, the wounded sister routine. "Kira, please, we're family. I never meant to hurt you." I studied her, really looked at the woman who'd taken everything without asking. "I believe you never thought about whether you were hurting me," I said. "That's not the same as not meaning to." Her face crumpled. "I forgive you, Serafina." The words came easier than I expected. "But I don't need you. There's a difference." I rose, signaling the audience was over. "Silver Crest is part of the Empire. You will receive the same treatment as any vassal pack, no better, no worse." I met my parents' eyes. "But you will not receive special favor because we share blood. You did not treat me as family. I will return the courtesy." The delegation was escorted out, diminished, dismissed. I watched them go and felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not anger, just peace. Caelan found me afterward, standing at the window where I'd watched them arrive. "Any regrets?" he asked. "Only that I didn't find you sooner." His arms wrapped around me from behind, solid, warm. I watched the Silver Crest carriages disappear into the distance. The past was finally, fully behind me. Chapter 15. Everything. 6 weeks later, I barely recognized my life. I woke in the Emperor's chambers, our chambers now. Morning light streamed through tall windows. Caelan's arm was draped across my waist, heavy and warm. My mate, my Emperor. The wolf who'd looked at nothing for 900 years and seen everything when he looked at me. "You're staring," he mumbled without opening his eyes. "I'm contemplating." "Contemplating what?" "Whether to let you sleep or drag you to the sparring grounds." One golden eye cracked open. "Those are my only options?" "I'm a simple woman." He pulled me closer, burying his face in my neck. "You are the most complicated woman I have ever met. That's why I like you." We sparred that morning, in our private training room, where no one could see the Emperor getting his feet swept out from under him by his Empress. I'd improved dramatically. Sarah's training combined with Caelan's private lessons had transformed me into something formidable. He still won most matches, but not all of them. "You let me win that last round," I accused, pinning him to the mat. "I did not." "Your footwork was sloppy." "My footwork is never sloppy." He grinned up at me. "Perhaps you've simply become exceptional." Flatterer. Truth teller. We ended up kissing instead of fighting. This happened frequently. The council met that afternoon. I presented a proposal for border pack education, a system to ensure young wolves in vassal territories had access to training and knowledge regardless of their birth status. Some advisors supported it immediately. Others questioned the cost. I argued my position with fire and facts. Caelan backed me without hesitation. The motion passed. Another small change. Another mark I was leaving on this empire. That evening we sat in our chambers, fire crackling low, wine untouched. I was reading. Caelan was watching me read. "You're staring again," I said without looking up. "I'm appreciating." "There's a difference?" "Significant difference." He shifted closer. "Staring implies mindlessness. Appreciation requires active engagement." I set down my book. 900 years, and you still haven't learned it's rude? 900 years, and you're the only thing I've wanted to look at this long. My heart squeezed. "I used to believe I was nothing," I said quietly. "That's what they told me." I almost accepted it. Caelan was silent, listening. Now I know that was just what scared people called me because they couldn't understand what I was. "And what are you?" I met his eyes. This ancient, impossible wolf who'd chosen me, who kept choosing me every single day. "Yours," I said. "But more importantly, mine." He crossed to me, pulled me to my feet, held my face in his hands like I was the most valuable thing in his existence. "You were never nothing." His voice was rough. "You were always everything. The world was just too blind to see it." He kissed me, soft, deep, reverent. "I am grateful every day that they were blind," he murmured against my lips, "because their blindness gave you to me." Later, we stood on our balcony, the same one where we'd first confessed. The empire sprawled below, silver under moonlight. His arms wrapped around me from behind. My hands covered his. The bond pulsed between us, whole, permanent, unshakable. Neither of us spoke. We didn't need to. I thought about the girl I'd been, invisible, overlooked, trained in secret because no one believed she was worth teaching. I thought about the woman I'd become, Empress, warrior, mate to the most powerful wolf alive. The journey from there to here hadn't been easy, but it had been mine. Every step, every choice, every moment of refusing to break when breaking would have been easier. I'd built myself from nothing, and then I'd found someone who saw exactly what I was and loved me anyway. The moon rose full and bright. 2 wolves, finally complete. She was told she was nothing. She became everything.